me introduce the EG Interactive panel. This recording has been done using Vitello Share, a wireless screen sharing application to ensure we give you the best possible images we can. What you see in front of you is the home screen. You'll notice there are 3 icons in the centre of the home screen. Note is the whiteboard, and the other 2 are optional. The switch to PC would appear if you have purchased an optional PC module, and the USB will appear if a USB hasn't been inserted into one of the many USB slots. You'll find USB slots in the lower front right-hand side, and the front and also around the lower right-hand side of the panel. Above it, you'll notice that there is a black box with some letters and numbers. This is the connection code to connect the panel to a device, whether it be a laptop, a desktop, an iPad, a tablet, or a mobile phone. Over on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we have the time, and then we have whether we're using Wi-Fi or Ethernet. If there's a USB connected, we have the volume, the brightness, and then we have an icon which allows us to switch between devices. You'll notice on both sides of the panel that there is a sidebar. Now, the sidebar is exactly the same. It just depends upon which side of the panel you're standing on at the time. You'll see that the sidebar is broken up into 3 sections. The first one has to do with movement on the panel or control of the panel. The next grouping has to do with applications, and the last grouping are tools. So let's start. We'll have a look at the first grouping. The first icon will always take you back to the previous screen. The next one will take you back to the home screen, which is the screen that you're seeing now. So if you do have your laptop or desktop connected with cables, you will still have a sidebar, and you will see a limited number of icons on the sidebar, one of which will be the home screen, so you can always go back to the panel. If you are using your laptop and desktop via cables, you will notice when you received your panel that you have 2 cables, a HDMI cable, which will project video and audio, and also a USB-A to USB-B cable, and that allows you to receive touch on the actual panel itself. So you don't have to run the panel from your laptop, you can actually run it from the panel itself. The next grouping down will show you any open tasks. Now, it's important that you look at this frequently, because just like in a mobile phone, if you have lots of tasks open, it will slow down the panel. So in that case, it's easy just to come down to the bottom and click on Clean All, and that will then remove them. This screen is also handy if you're using this prior to running a class that day. So you can, for example, come into your panel and go, I'm going to be using the whiteboard today. So click on the whiteboard, enter in your lesson or open up a lesson that you already have, leave it open, and then go back to the home screen. You can then go, well, we're going to be looking at a YouTube video, so we can open up the browser, type in a YouTube video, type in an address of somewhere you'd like to be looking up, and then just leave it like that, and then we would go back to home. You may then want to be going to the actual Finder, which is the file management system, and open up a file that you have, and then we could go back to home. So basically what you'll notice is that you're setting up for the day. So when you want to use these things, you can just go directly to the Open Apps icon. You'll notice that the 3 of them are open. And then when you want to go to the whiteboard, to the lesson that you have pre-recorded or pre-prepared, you would just click on the whiteboard and away you go. Let's go back to home. Once we're in that application, you can actually flick things off. So in the morning, you can come along and you can just flick them, and then they will remove. Or alternatively, you can go down to the bottom and click on Clean All, wipe them off, and then the next day, come back and set it all back up again. The next grouping are the applications. The first one being the whiteboard, which we'll look at the end of the session. The next one is Finder. Finder is the file management system. It is not dissimilar to the file management system on a computer, so Finder on an Apple or File Explorer on a PC. What you'll see is in this case we have storage. Storage is the panel itself, and you'll notice there are a number of folders in that panel. You cannot remove these particular folders, they are there, but however, you can create your own folders. You'll notice down the bottom left-hand side, we have a menu, and the most right-hand side menu icon is to create. You could create folders for your different resources, for different teachers, for the students in your class, so that you can store any files that they have created in your files and in those folders. You'll notice we have a USB connected, so you can see we have a number of folders on the USB. And lastly, we are also able to access the cloud drive. So there is a place, and I'll show you in a minute or two, where you can log into your cloud drive, and then you are able to upload and download files to the cloud drive. If we have the USB, you'll notice when I click on something, so let's select a folder. Let's go to the PDF folder. When I select it, you'll now notice that it has the icon on the right-hand side has appeared, letting us know that that folder has been selected. So a single click will select, and a double click, so back to the PDF folder, and what that does is it will open it up, and then a single click will select it. So you'll notice that you can easily select or deselect files and folders. Once we do that, you'll notice in the bottom we now have a new menu that's appeared. So we have the same copy, cut, delete, paste type icons. Also, though, we can rename any of the files, and there is a send. Now, with the send, it's in a way that you can quickly send between the devices, so quickly between the USB and the storage. So let's go back to the USB and just assume we have on the USB a number of folders, resources that we want to place onto the panel. So we can go down to the bottom toolbar, click on select, so over on the left-hand side, and now you'll notice that it has little circles appearing in the top right-hand side of each of those folders. So we can just go along and click and select them. And then if we wanted to move those to the panel, because we're on the USB, we could then click on send, and you'll notice that it then has an option that says device, and we can automatically then move it from the USB to the storage, which is the panel itself. So that's really all there is to do when it comes to Finder. Similarly, when we're on the storage, if you have folders that you have created for the students, you want to move them to the USB or to your cloud drive, same thing. You would just click on select the children's folders, for example, and then click on send, and then move it to the USB. I'll close out of here, so I'm just going to go back to home. The next one to look at down in our list here of apps is the browser. So just clicking on the Chromium browser, you'll see that it is a browser, it is Chrome, and a browser is a browser. So I'm not going to go into how you use it, but obviously we type our search details in and we're there. So once we click on it, you'll see that it does come up with a keyboard, a mobile keyboard, so we can enter in any details that we want. All right, let's go back to home, and now let's look at the next grouping down, which are the 9 dots. Now, the 9 dots has a range of different applications that are available. So clicking on the 9 dots or the waffle, you'll see here we have a number of these. Switch to PC. Vitello has a management system. It is not something that we use because it actually goes off to China to be able to manage a range of panels at the school or at the corporation. Chromium is the browser itself. Notice that there is a little dot next to it that's letting you know that it's open at this point in time. The cloud drive is where you would go to actually connect into your cloud drive. Just being aware that you may need to log out at the end of the day, because if other people use your panel, you don't want them access to your particular cloud drive. The cloud drive could be a OneDrive or a Google Drive account. The next one is Finder, which we looked at, the file management system, which you'll see is still open because it has the little dot to the left. Let's go to Keeper. Keeper actually allows you to clean your panel. So you'll see here that we can clean the memory and we can clean the trash. So what happens is, just like with a computer, if we use things and use lots of apps, it will slowly use up the memory. And with the trash, what happens is, as you use the panel to create things and delete them, they'll go into the recycling bin or the deleted items or whatever you want to call it, the trash can. And then what we can do is we can actually click on one key optimize, and what that does is it will then actually clean both the memory and the trash. Okay, so I'll go back out and go back to the home screen. Keeper is something that you should do fairly regularly just to keep the panel running at optimum speeds. The next one along My IG3 has a range of software that's available. It is on a subscription basis. However, as a purchase of a panel, you are able to receive one of the programs of the top 9 programs, Maths and English, ReadMe, and the languages for a free subscription for a year. Let's go back to home. If you are interested in any of those programs, please do contact us and we can give you further information or give you an additional training. The next one is Note. Note is the whiteboard, which we'll look at later. And the next one along is a palette. Now, this is a colour palette. It allows the children to actually draw. So you'll notice then we have a range of colours. So we can select a colour, we have a paintbrush, and we can paint. We can change the width, change the colour. Quite handy when children are wanting to draw. You'll see that you can actually save them. You can import a photo into the palette, and also you can share. Now, what share does is it will bring up a QR code, which you can then scan with a mobile phone or an iPad or any device that is able to scan, and it will then automatically be placed upon that device. Okay, let's go back to home. The next one of our apps that we're having a look at are the settings. Settings are used primarily by the IT people to set up Wi-Fi and things like that, although you can actually set up wallpaper. And the other thing you can do here is set it to multi-window mode. What multi-window mode will do is that it will then split the screen in half, so you can have one app running on one half and one on the other. What it does is it will, though, reboot the system in between. So I'm not going to do that now, but that will allow you to do that. And similarly, when you're in multi-window mode and you want to close it down, it will then reboot the panel. Okay, let us go back to the next one that we see. The next one we have is Visualizer. For Visualizer to work, we need to have a camera, so a USB camera, webcam, that's connected to the panel, and then it will actually take photos of the room. It's a great resource if you're using the panels for Zoom rooms, for example. It will then be able to use that camera as a shared resource in Zoom. And lastly, here we have WPS Office. WPS Office is a tool that will allow you to work with Word, Excel, PDF, and PowerPoint files. So we would just click Start to start it, and then we are going to allow the WPS Office to have access to the panel. What you will notice is that it comes up with a range of options. Now, the SD card is actually the USB that you see. So we are able to open up the USB, and then it would show us the documents that we have. There's all the folders, for example, and then we're able to open up any of those. It's a great resource if you wish to work directly on the panel rather than having the laptop connected and working that way. Okay, let's go back to home. And what we've done now is we've actually looked at all of the resources, all of the apps on the actual panel itself. So let's work down the list and we'll go and have a look at some of the tools. Now, the first one that you see allows you to share between different devices. So you'll notice here we have a PC. We have a range of devices, HDMI 1, 2, and 3 will actually be displayed if we have a laptop or desktop connected with the cables. Android is the panel itself, so it's very easy then to just click on that and go between the actual devices themselves, the HDMI devices, and going back to the panel. The other thing you'll notice is that we have the brightness of the panel, and in this case, the volume has been muted. So let's just turn the volume up a little bit. Here we go. So now we have some volume. I won't make it too loud. Here we go. All right, so we now have our volume. And you'll notice that it no longer has a line through the actual sound. Looking at our next tool, this is the Annotate. Annotate allows you to draw on the panel. The panel itself has 20 points of touch, which means that 20 fingers or 20 people can be working on the panel at the same time. The panel does have a range of colours. You'll see we have red, we have black, blue and green. There is also a brush. So this is like a highlighter. So we can then highlight an area. Clean will actually delete everything. But if you only want to remove a little bit, you can actually use your hand. Some people like to use the side of the hand, some use the whole hand, some the fingers. I tend to use the base of my thumb. And what you'll notice is that you can just remove a tiny piece. The bigger the hand and the bigger the imprint on the panel is, the bigger the rubber that will be. There is also a save option. So whatever you see on the panel, so everything that you see will be saved as a photo on the panel. So it's great to be using for screenshots. You can, like, whatever it is that you see. So if you've been brainstorming on a website and you've got all these things there, then you can actually save that. So it's a great resource for that. The other one that you'll see is a share option. That then lets you bring up that QR code that we spoke about earlier. So you could scan it and then you get an image of whatever it is that's on the screen. And the next one along obviously is the cloud. So we can save it to the cloud. And then by closing, what it does is it will then remove all of it. The next tool that you see in our list is actually the screen sharing, which is what you're seeing now. Coming down, the next one is a timer. The timer can be moved. It will be placed on top of whatever is being displayed on the panel at the time. So if you're working on the whiteboard and you want to give children or people a particular time limit to be using it, then it will place it on the top. If you're in a browser, if you have one of your applications that is stored from your laptop, whatever it is, it will always place it on the top. If I change this now to 5 seconds, notice that we have this box to the left of the closing icon, the X. So you'll see when it finishes that it comes up and rings the bell. So that's where the volume is important. You may or may not want it to be so loud. Now, if I start it again, then and I'll click on that box to make it full screen. The next one along are the 3 dots within the circle. This is more tools. So what you'll notice here then is we have a crop. The crop will then allow you to crop the screen. And you'll see that you can do the full screen. We can save it as a file on the actual panel itself. It will save it as a photo and we can insert it into the whiteboard. The next one along is a stopwatch. So similarly to the timer, the countdown timer, this then lets us count down how long things take. The next tool is AirClass. AirClass is a voting system. You're able to access it via a QR code or by entering a URL into a laptop or a desktop, and then you're able to vote on particular questions. The next one along is a spotlight. The spotlight is just like when you have a torch at night and you're shining it, all you can see is what you see in the spotlight. Now, for making that work, we just need to go and click on the setting and move the clarity all the way to the left. From here, we can then move our spotlight wherever we like. Also, if you put 2 fingers, one on either side, you're able to increase the size of the spotlight. Great for removing distractions from any of the students. The next one along is the freeze. What freeze does is it will allow you to zoom the screen in so we can make it bigger if we have something we'd like to get more clarity, or alternatively, we can just bring it back to the normal place. And then the last one that you see there is a screen lock. I recommend that you don't use a screen lock. What you will have in your box that came with the panel is a remote control. On the remote control, in the centre of the remote control are some coloured buttons. By clicking on the red button and pointing it to the sensor, which is over on the right-hand side, it will then, the red button will lock the actual screen itself, so take the touch off, and it will disable the on-off switch. By clicking it again, it will then bring back the touch and the on-off switch. The other button that's quite useful is the blue button, and what it does is it will freeze the screen, allowing you to be able to have something being displayed on the panel and being able to work on a different document on your laptop. The last thing we want to now do is to look at our whiteboard. So clicking on Note on the centre of our panel, then what you'll see is it now has opened up Note. Now, the first thing is let's look at the menus. We're going to go from the left-hand side here and work our way across to the right. So the first one is the hamburger menu. Now, what this does is it lets us doing a lot of things. We can work with our files. We can also work with changing some of the themes. But before we do that, I want to go into settings. And what I want to do is click on, with this eraser mode, click on erase selection. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to give you more options of how you can erase information. So coming back to our menu, we've had a look at that. Let's now look at theme. Theme will let you change the background colour, but also it has some pre-built-in templates. So you can see you've got lines, we've got grids, we've got music notes. There are some, for example, some sporting type templates. I'll go back to nothing. I'm now going to go to the background. So that's the other tab at the top left-hand side. And you'll see that I can then change the colour of that background. So I'll just change the colour. But the other thing that's really good here is that you'll see there is a plus. Now, what the plus does is that it allows you to add or enter your own backgrounds. So, for example, one of the common ones that we frequently get asked is about the red and blue lines for the year ones. So you could have a photo, and it's telling you the size of it. You could have a photo which has the red and blue lines of a year one, and then you could put that up so that you could use that. But you can really do anything that you wanted to do. You can use as background. It could be you have the alphabet and you're having children trace it. It could be you have numbers. You could have things that you want them to colour in. You could have the periodic tables. You could have any math sums that you want the children to actually do. So thinking about it, once you start to use backgrounds, it can become a very, very useful and powerful tool. Okay, back to our menu. You'll notice now that we have a number of options to work with files. So obviously new creates a new whiteboard. Open and save. So you can, if you're working with the whiteboard and it's time to go and you haven't finished, you can save it. It will save it as an extension ENV, which is only open really by the actual whiteboard itself. But the next morning you could come in and then open that whiteboard so that you can continue to work on it. You can also import and export files. So if you have been working on the panel and you now want to save it, you can save it as a photo or a PDF. Likewise, we can import photos or PDFs. So let's import a PDF. I have one on the USB. So we're going to go to the PDFs and I'll pick up the file and go OK. And you'll see now that it has brought it in. Now I can move it around because you'll see it's in select mode. And notice as well that it's now gone and said that the page numbering is 2 of 2. That is because page 1 is now blank and this put it on page 2. So if the PDF I brought in had 6 pages, then it would actually say 7 of 7 because page 1 would be blank and it started the PDF on page 2. You can make this larger. The other one I wanted to show you just now is with the 2 of 2, what you can see is, let's add a few more in. If I click on the numbers themselves, 9 of 9 in this case, you'll see that we have the 9 different pages. We can delete them. It's very easy to go to a different page. So we can go back to page 2, which has got our image. And what also is handy is that these backgrounds can have different colours. If you have children in the class who are dyslexic, for example. Now, also, what you'll notice is that we have a sharing option. So if you're able to, you can click on that. It will bring up a QR code. Same deal. We can scan it in and we'll be able to then have whatever you see on the panel as a resource on the device. So if the children have iPads, it's a great way to share the resource. Now, in the centre of the screen here, we have a number of different tools. So we have looked at select. The pen will let you write. So a single tap will actually let you write in that particular colour, whatever happens to be selected. If we tap it again, then what you'll notice is that we have two different pens. And you have two different pens. So there are two tabs, two different pen sizes. So the pen itself will have a fat nib on one end and a thin nib on the other. And so basically it depends which side of the panel of the pen you're using as to whether you're going to get the thin or the fat side. The other part about this is that it means that you can have more than one person using the panel at any one time. In fact, the panel is 20 touch, so you could actually have 20 children, 20 people standing in a row all working the panel at the same time. You'll notice for each of them that they do have a variety of different type styles, and you can obviously change the width of that particular pencil in this case. So see how it's now a lot wider. Now I'm just going to erase, which is the next option, and we'll just get rid of everything. So we're just going to clean all. And now back to the pen, I want to show you another option that we have is something called the magic wand. Now, just if you are using the magic wand, just be aware of which tab you are using, because otherwise you'll see what happens in a sec. So if I click on the magic wand, and now if I draw a circle, then what you'll notice is that it comes up with things that are like circles. So I could click on a ball, for example, or if I draw a square, then it's going to come up with things that are like a square, or a triangle. So it's a really handy thing to do, but like I was saying, it's important to remember which pen you're doing it. Otherwise, you could have images appearing when you're expecting to have your text. Now, I'm just going to take the magic wand off. So we'll go back to the pencil, and then I'm going to click on Clean All. Now, with the eraser, we were talking before about different ways to erase. So let's have some marks on here. And one way that you can erase is with your hand, like we did before. But the other two ways, there are three ways, obviously. The other way is you can draw a circle. We need to click on eraser first. Draw a circle around it, and that will erase it. My actual favourite is just to draw a line through it, and then it will erase everything. But now let's look at the range of tools that we have. So there is a ruler, and you can have either protractors or set squares. With the ruler, you are able to just draw a line across it, and we can close it. You can actually make it larger, you can move it around. The other options are, let's go back to our ruler, looking at the protractor, you can just put the angle that you want and then click on the tick, and now we'll close it, and you'll see that you have the angles. You'll have 2D and 3D shapes, so choose your shape. Let's have a triangle. You go to the starting point and drag. Go to the starting point and drag. One of the other options that you have is you have the 2D, and we also have the 3D. Now the 3D, let's go there, you'll see is exactly the same. We choose the type we want, go to starting point and drag. Starting point and drag. Now let me erase everything there. Also with the shapes, what can be quite useful is in the 2D shapes, you'll see there's a hand image. If I click on the hand, what that does is it will let me free draw something, and then it will actually neaten it. So if I try to make a nice rectangle, then you'll see that it will do that. So it just will, whatever the shape is that you're doing. Let's erase everything. All right, now moving along, tables. You'll see here we can add a table in. We've inserted our table. If we write information in the cell, what you'll see is that it will actually expand that cell to fit the text. And if we use the select option and highlight it, so you can do that by just drawing a circle around it, then it will actually allow you to edit the rows and columns. So we can remove them, or we could insert them. And then we can delete the whole thing. Also, we have a mind map. The mind map is quite handy. It does let you add extra cells in. It's a bit tricky working it with my mouse, but you can actually, if you write something, it will actually try to give you the options of what you wrote. All right, and you'll see that with the mouse, I haven't done a very good job of that. But you can actually, by touching on the outside cells, you can, there we go, it's changed it. You can actually add extra units into that whiteboard. Into that mind map. It's a really great tool to have. Moving along, you've also got some sticky notes. Let's erase everything here. And the sticky notes lets you type in some text, and when you click OK, it stores it up in the top right-hand corner. I find these very useful so that if a student is asking a question and it's maybe not the right time to explain it, or you need to remember something, then it's really good as a tool just to have it in the top corner. Okay, so that's pretty much it, except we've got the preview. So let me just add a table. And all right, we've got a table and we've been writing things. We've got a whole lot of things on our particular panel itself. So let's just get some things happening. You've been brainstorming and you need more room. Then what you can do with the preview is to reduce them or enlarge them. So that's pretty much the whiteboard itself. Let me go out of the whiteboard. The best thing to do with these panels is to just have a microfiber cloth, put some warm water, wring it out so that there is absolutely no fluid at all, and just buff off any marks. This is important because there is an anti-glare coating on top of the panel, and by using any chemicals, you will actually eat away the coating. If you have any other questions about the panel or would like additional information, then please do contact us, 1800 334 633, or send an email to info@ig3education.com.au.